Picture this, a gleaming Jaguar E-Type rolls off the production line in 1961, destined to become automotive royalty, while 60 years later, Britain struggles to produce a single competitive electric vehicle that the world actually wants to buy. What happened? How did a nation that literally invented the sports car, that gave us Aston Martin, Bentley, and Rolls-Royce, somehow lose its way so completely that today most British car brands are owned by Germans, Indians, or the Chinese? The answer is going to shock you, and it has everything to do with why Britain can't let go of its past, even as that past is actively strangling its future. If you're ready to understand why one of the world's greatest car cultures became a museum instead of a movement, hit that like button right now and make sure you're subscribed, because what I'm about to reveal will change how you see every British car forever. Hey, this is Mark, and you're welcome to Auto Says. Now, let me take you back to a moment that perfectly captures Britain's automotive tragedy. And trust me, this is where things get interesting. It's 2005, and MG Rover, the last major British-owned car manufacturer, collapses into administration. 6,000 jobs vanish overnight. But here's the kicker that nobody talks about. While MG Rover was busy rebadging 20-year-old Honda designs and slapping British racing green paint on them, calling it innovation, the rest of the world had already moved on to hybrid technology, advanced safety systems, and manufacturing efficiency that Britain couldn't even dream of matching. The workers didn't fail, the engineers didn't fail, but something much deeper had rotted from the inside out. Britain had become so obsessed with what it used to be that it forgot to become what it needed to be. And this wasn't just about one company dying. This was about an entire philosophy of automotive culture that chose heritage over hunger, nostalgia over necessity. Think about it like this. When was the last time you heard someone say they bought a British car because it was the most reliable, the most innovative, or the best value? You haven't, right? Instead, you hear about character, about heritage, about that indefinable British charm that somehow excuses oil leaks, electrical gremlins, and build quality that makes Italian cars look bulletproof. This is the nostalgia trap, and Britain walked right into it with its eyes wide open, then decided to set up camp and never leave. But before we get too deep into why this happened, let me hit you with some numbers that'll make your jaw drop. In 1950, Britain was the world's largest car exporter, shipping more vehicles overseas than any other nation on Earth. By 1970, British Leyland was formed as a government-backed mega-corporation, controlling 40% of the UK car market. Fast forward to today, and Britain owns exactly 0 volume car manufacturers. 0. Not a single major brand building regular cars for regular people is British-owned anymore. Mini? That's BMW. Jaguar and Land Rover? Indian-owned by Tata. Bentley? Volkswagen Group. Even Lotus, that raw, lightweight sports car icon, is controlled by Geely, a Chinese company. The only truly British-owned car makers left are ultra-low-volume specialists like McLaren and Aston Martin. And even Aston Martin had to take a massive cash injection from Lawrence Stroll just to stay afloat. So what killed British car manufacturing? Was it unions? Was it bad management? Was it government interference? Actually, it was something far more insidious, something that crept in so slowly that nobody noticed until it was way too late. It was the decision, conscious or not, to compete on yesterday's victories instead of tomorrow's possibilities. Let me explain what I mean, and this is where the psychology gets really fascinating. Britain's automotive golden age happened roughly between 1945 and 1975. This was the era of the E-Type, the Mini Cooper, the Range Rover, the Lotus Elan, cars that genuinely changed the game and set standards the world tried to copy. The problem? Britain emotionally never left that era. While Japan was studying W. Edwards Deming and revolutionizing quality control, while Germany was investing billions in research and development, while America was scaling up production efficiency, Britain was busy arguing about whether wire wheels looked more authentic than alloys, and whether real sports cars should have luxuries like, working heaters. The British car industry became like that high school quarterback who can't stop talking about the big game 20 years ago. Everyone else moved on, but he's still wearing his Letterman jacket at the reunion. And here's where the financial reality gets brutal, and I mean absolutely brutal. Manufacturing cars isn't romantic. It's not about heritage or character or spirit. It's about margins, efficiency, scale, and constant innovation. Toyota didn't become the world's largest automaker because they made nostalgic designs. They did it through Kaizen, continuous improvement, through building cars so reliable that they became boring, through manufacturing processes so efficient that competitors spent decades trying to catch up. The British response? Keep making the same basic designs, outsource the actual innovation to partners, then slap a British badge on it and charge a premium for the privilege of owning something with heritage. This worked for maybe a decade, then reality came crashing down like a badly engineered suspension system. The financial collapse of British Leyland in the 70s and 80s should have been the wake-up call, but instead it just reinforced the pattern. The government would bail out failing brands, workers would strike for better conditions in factories that couldn't compete even if they worked for free, and management would blame everyone except themselves for not having the courage to completely reinvent what a British car could be. Meanwhile, Japanese cars were landing in British driveways because they actually started every morning, didn't leak oil on the driveway, and didn't require a team of specialist mechanics just to change the spark plugs. British buyers were voting with their wallets, and they were voting for competence over character. Now here's a question that's probably bouncing around in your head right now. If British cars were so problematic, why do people still love them so much? Why do Jaguar E-Types sell for hundreds of thousands at auction? Why do people get misty-eyed talking about old Land Rovers? This is where nostalgia becomes a drug, and not the good kind. Nostalgia works by filtering out all the bad memories and amplifying the good ones. Nobody remembers the 3 times their Austin Haley left them stranded on the side of the road, but they'll talk forever about that one perfect Sunday drive through the countryside. This emotional connection is powerful, it's real, but it's also commercially useless when you're trying to compete in a modern automotive market where Chinese EV startups can go from concept to production in 18 months, and traditional manufacturers are spending tens of billions on electric platforms. Britain tried to monetize nostalgia, and for a while it worked. The problem with selling yesterday is that eventually you run out of people who remember it. The current crisis facing British automotive nostalgia is this: younger buyers don't care about what British cars used to represent because they never experienced it. To someone born in 1995, a Jaguar isn't a symbol of British excellence, it's just another luxury brand that breaks down more than a Lexus and costs more to fix than a BMW. The emotional connection has been severed, and without innovation to replace it, there's nothing left but expensive maintenance bills and depreciation curves that look like cliff faces. So where does this leave us? Britain still has incredible automotive engineering talent. Silverstone is still the heart of Formula One technology. British engineers work for every major racing team and hypercar manufacturer on Earth. The expertise didn't disappear, it just couldn't find a home in British-owned companies willing to take risks. And this is the tragedy at the heart of everything. Britain has the knowledge, the skills, and the history to be great again, but it's trapped in a cultural mindset that values preserving the past over creating the future. The Chinese are building EVs that travel 500 miles on a single charge. The Americans are landing rockets vertically and building pickup trucks that are also computers. The Germans are perfecting autonomous driving systems, and Britain is arguing about whether the new electric Jaguar betrays the brand's heritage. See the problem? Heritage doesn't pay the bills. Heritage doesn't create jobs. Heritage doesn't win in a market where innovation moves faster than nostalgia can keep up. Here's the uncomfortable truth that British car culture refuses to accept. Loving old cars and building new ones are completely different skills, and Britain got so good at the first that it forgot how to do the second. Restoration is not innovation. Preservation is not progress. Remembering glory days is not the same as creating new ones. Until British automotive culture can separate its valid love of heritage from its paralyzing fear of change, the country will continue to watch its automotive dreams get bought, sold, and shipped overseas by companies that understand something Britain forgot. The best car you ever built means absolutely nothing if the car you're building tomorrow isn't even better. So the next time you see a beautiful vintage British sports car at a show, appreciate it, admire it, respect what it represents. But remember this,
That car is a museum piece, a monument to what was possible when Britain was brave enough to lead instead of follow, to innovate instead of imitate, to risk failure for the chance at greatness. Modern British car culture needs to rediscover that courage, or the only place you'll see British cars in the future is in someone else's museum tagged with a plaque that reads, "What might have been." If this opened your eyes to the real story behind Britain's automotive decline, hit that like button, subscribe for more content that cuts through the nostalgia to show you what's really happening in the car world, and drop me a comment telling me, do you think Britain can ever reclaim its automotive glory, or is that dream dead forever? Thanks for watching. This is Auto Says, and remember, the rear view mirror is for checking what's behind you, not for living in it.